Hello, happy Monday. This is Kier with the JSM Counseling team. I am so excited to be with you on this wonderful Monday evening. I almost got tongue tied there. Y'all know how it is when you haven't had your coffee. I hope your Monday has been off to a great start. Would you do me a huge favor and press the share button down there? Just press the share button. Go ahead and comment. Let me know where you're watching from. I love to read the comments. We love to read the comments. We want to know what you're feeling, what you're thinking. If this is helping you, let us know in the comments. So comment, share, like, and tag a friend and let them know that you're hanging with us on your Monday night. So, this is our virtual group, and I'm going to come on and share a few things about mental health, different trending topics, things going on, current events. We're going to talk all things mental health. So, you're going to be with me Monday nights, 5:30. Put it on your calendar. My name is Kiera Brown. I'm a counseling intern, and I'm a part of the amazing JSM counseling team. When I tell you each and every counselor is special to me, and I could not ask for a better team. I'm under direct supervision of Joanna Snow, an amazing counseling supervisor. I cannot thank her enough for this opportunity to come on and share with you today. So, we're going to be talking about Nourish and Flourish, self care edition. We're going to be talking about self care, y'all. So, grab your popcorn. Go ahead, run real quickly. Grab your popcorn, grab your snacks, whatever you need to watch this video. Get real comfortable because we're going to talk about it all. So I'm going to pull up my presentation really quickly while you're grabbing your snacks. We're going to have fun in this group, okay? So, nourish and flourish, understanding self care. Understanding self care. So, when you hear about self care, you may have, an idea of what you think self care may mean to you, what that looks like for you, or what you think it is. Before we get into that, I forgot, y'all know the drill. When we come on here, I like to ask how you're feeling. I want to know how you're feeling today. Look at the emojis right there and just drop a heart and let me know if you're doing good, if you're doing okay, if you need some support, if you're having a hard time, just let me know in the comments by dropping one of those hearts in the section. That lets me know how to support you because we care and we want to make sure that you are okay, and if you're not okay, that you get the support that you need. Sometimes you just need a little bit of support. So go ahead and drop in the comments how you're feeling. Check in, check in, check in. So, what in the world is self care? I know it's social media. We've been hearing that word all around social media, self care, self care. If you've been on TikTok, if you've been on Facebook, I gotta have self care. I gotta have some me time. What does that mean? What is self care? So, so usually when you see self care, you see things like this, right? You see nail salons, you think of facials, and you're probably wondering, like, you know, what I can't afford that. If that's self-care, if that's what I have to do all the time, I may not be able to afford that. I may not be able to go to the salon every week, and I mean, it would be great, or maybe I don't have the time. Who's going to watch the kids? What am I going to do? So, I just want to let you know that this can be very relaxing, but it's not necessarily the definition of self-care. What has happened is a lot of entertainment media has gotten a hold to the definition of self-care, and self-care now is presented with luxury, and it always has to be some type of luxury. It always means salon, massage, facial, spending lots of money, shopping. Well, that's not really the definition of self-care. Self-care refers to the intentional activities and practices individuals engage in to care for their mental, emotional, and physical health. Now, this definition is from the World Health Organization. It's a critical component of maintaining balance in life, managing stress, and achieving overall wellness. Okay? The importance of self care is that it promotes resilience, enhances quality of life, and prevents burnout. So, when we're talking about self care, we're talking about the definition of self care here. So, that is an intentional activity and practice that you engage in to care for your mental, emotional, and physical health, right? So, in other words, there are different types of self care. There's mental self care, there's emotional self care. When we think about emotional self care, we get into boundaries, right? When we think about mental self care, we think about physical health, working out, eating good meals. That is self care. So, think of self care as in care for self, right? Caring for yourself, being kind to yourself, being good to yourself, making sure that you're emotionally, mentally, and physically taken care of so that you don't get burnt out. And most of the time, people say, I'm going to have a self care day. I want to let you know that a self care day is not really sustainable. That's why we want to get away from the idea that it has to be some sort of luxury. Because if you can't maintain it, then it may not be the form of self care that you can practice every week or, daily, right? So, to my next point, there's a difference between self care and maintenance. So many times when we talk about self care, a lot of people think it means I'm going to the nail salon, I'm going to the hair salon, I'm getting my eyebrows done, I'm getting my eyelashes done, I'm getting a facial, I'm getting a wax. Those were things that you were going to do anyway. It's called maintenance. Those are the things that you do just to, show up in everyday life. Like getting your hair done, that's maintenance. Brushing your teeth, that's maintenance. Those are things that you do to keep yourself up and keep yourself going. And just because it's something that you're doing to keep yourself up doesn't necessarily mean that it is a form of self care. Okay. So, maintenance refers to the regular routine actions you take to keep your body, mind, and life in good working order. So, in other words, maintenance is not bad. This includes daily activities like brushing your teeth, eating, exercising, sleeping, and maintaining personal hygiene. The purpose of maintenance is to preserve your current state of well being and prevent deterioration or decline. Going to the dentist regularly for cleanings, getting routine health checkups, or doing household chores to keep your living space clean. Those things are considered maintenance. Most of your appointments are maintenance. Getting your hair done, maintenance. Getting your nails done, maintenance, right? And I'm not saying those things can't be relaxing. I'm not saying there are bad things, but I want to, define the definition between maintenance and self care. So many times we don't practice self care because we fear being labeled as selfish, right? I don't want to be selfish. Nobody wants to be selfish. Nobody wants to be selfish. But what's the difference between selfishness and self care? So, selfishness is when a person prioritizes their own needs, desires, or interests at the expense of others without regard for the impact on those around them. It often involves a lack of empathy and consideration for others. The intent behind selfishness is typically self centered, focusing on personal gain or comfort without concern for others' well being. An example of selfishness is ignoring a friend's need for support because you don't want to be inconvenienced or making decisions that benefit you but harm others. So, when we talk about self-care and selfishness, know that they are not the same. So many times we neglect self-care because we don't want to be labeled as selfish. So I want to take a good look at this definition of selfishness, right? So the key word here, the key phrase rather, is at the expense of others without regard for the impact of those around them. So when we think about selfishness, those are the things that you do that impact others in a negative way, right? So, um, you run a red light because you're late for work. You're trying to get to work on time. You run a red light. You may hit another car, or almost hit another car. That's a form of selfishness, right? Because your motive is all about you, and it can harm others. So that's the difference between selfishness and self care. When you think about selfishness, maybe someone's up for a promotion on your job. Well, you go and you tell the boss, hey, this person should not be getting this job. I want the job. Or maybe you sabotage them or start a nasty rumor about them at work, or you tell a secret about them that's harmful, right? Because you don't want them to get that promotion. You want to get the promotion. That is selfishness, right? So selfishness is about harming others and about your own personal gain. Someone, you find out your friend is writing a book, or your friend has an idea and they share it with you, and you take that idea and you make it your own, and you decide, hey, I'm going to make this my idea and I'm going to publish the book. Well, that is a form of selfishness. That is a form of selfishness. That's when you put your needs first and you're not concerned about those around you. I want to make a religious consideration. I love my ethical consideration. Let's talk about self care versus selfishness. In the Christian culture, we have a lot of fear of being selfish, right? We devote a lot of time in caring for others, whether that's volunteering, at the church or the events, or, helping someone in need, giving to the poor, feeding the homeless, serving in the community, holding clothing drives, all the things we do because we care about others. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Those are great things. Those are wonderful things. If that's something you enjoy doing. But I do want to add here, in all of your serving, in all of your giving, in all of your going, don't forget to not to take care of yourself. Don't forget to take care of yourself. It's great to serve others. God, if you're a believer and you believe in the Christian faith, yes, God wants you to serve others. That's beautiful. It's great. He encourages it. But one of the things you want to keep in mind is that you are not all spiritual. You are not all your serving and all your ministering and all your doing and going. You are a human being. You have a body, you possess a soul. Um, you are a spirit, you have a body, and you possess a soul. I want to say this: self care is just not focusing on yourself. If we look back at the last definition of self care or selfishness was about harming others. It was all about personal gain, what you can gain, right? Self care is not to encourage you to not do your work of the ministry, right? It's not saying, hey, focus on yourself. Don't worry about the homeless. Don't worry about the kids at the church. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm simply saying that there is a balance. Yes, serve if that's what you're called to do, what you like to do, but you don't have to serve to the point of depletion. When you're at depletion, that's a key sign that you have neglected your self care. When you are at burnout, you have neglected self care. And can I tell you something better? Scripture supports self care. Yes, it's in the Bible. Self care is in the Bible. Let's take a look here. Mark 12 and 30. I'm reading from the New King James Version. It says, "And you shall love the Lord God with all your heart, all of your soul, all of your mind, and with all of your strength. This is the first commandment. And the second, like it is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these." Whoa. What? What? Let's stay right there. Okay. So watch this. Scripture is splitting us up, right? It's telling you that you have a heart, you have a soul, you have a mind, and you have strength, right? So it's breaking it up. It's letting you know that you are not just spiritual, right? And it says that that's the first commandment. But watch this. The second, like it is this, you shall love your neighbor as who? Yourself. There is no other commandment greater than these. You should love your neighbor as yourself. So, in other words, God doesn't just want you to take care of your neighbor. He doesn't just want you to volunteer and, serve in the ministry and, feed the homeless and, have your food drives and volunteer at the church. He wants you to also take good care of yourself. It's right there. It says you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So, in other words, it's hard to love your neighbor when you don't love yourself. It means that you're not in order, according to the Bible, what we have here, if you are loving others or giving to others and serving others and showing others compassion, but you're not doing that for yourself, right? It's saying you shall do that as yourself. So, in other words, like yourself. So, that means take care of your neighbor. Yes, serve, help if that's what you feel called and led to do, if that's your plan and that's what you want to do. Wonderful. Do those things. But you have to also take good care of yourself. It's right there. Love your neighbor as yourself. So, in other words, don't find yourself out here volunteering, serving, going, helping, and you leave yourself out. You leave yourself out of the picture. The same way you serve others, you want to take care of yourself. You want to do yourself some justice, show yourself some compassion, right? Those are all the things that the Bible is commanding you to do. So, in other words, it looks like the Bible, the scripture, is encouraging you to take care of yourself well. Is telling you, yes, love God, yes, love others, but also love self. Take care of self. So, in other words, I put it in order for you. Number one, love God. Number two, love yourself. Number three, love your neighbor. And I put love yourself in red because I want to remind you that you are, if you are of the Christian faith, um, it is not for you to just love God and love other people and dislike yourself and be hard on yourself and mean to yourself and lack compassion for yourself. According to the scripture now, what we just read, um, you are to also care about yourself. You are to also take care of yourself. You're to also make sure that you have what you need, right? You don't want to feed the homeless and you're out feeding the homeless but you haven't fed yourself, right? What happens when you've been a blessing and then you go home and you're physically tired or you get sick because you're not getting the nutrition and the nourishment that you need because you didn't take care of yourself? The problem, God clearly in scripture, there's no problem with loving yourself. The problem is when loving yourself gets out of order. When you start putting loving yourself in spot number one or spot number three, that's when it becomes a problem. When you begin to love yourself first, right? And love others and love God last, that's when it becomes the problem. And when you begin to love your neighbor first or second, it becomes a problem. So when you begin to love your neighbor more, when you put number three in slot number two or slot number one, what happens is we get things like low self worth, low self esteem, right? When you're low on the list, remember this, when you're low on the list, that's when you are going to get the low self-esteem and the low self-worth, right? And the lots of anxiety because you're caring about others but you're neglecting yourself. So that's why taking care of yourself is important. So it's not a problem or a bad thing to take care of yourself. It's just a problem when taking care of yourself is just out of order, when you're harming others, right? What we read earlier, the selfishness, that's the problem. So I mentioned this earlier. Oh, I'm just going to pause right here. I mentioned this earlier. Self care is beneficial to you, especially if you're in ministry. If you're a pastor and you're watching this, if you are in ministry or in any capacity, self care has to be your lifestyle. If we go back to that original definition of self care, when we talked about self care being it's intentional, right? So that means that sometimes it may be tempting to not do self care, right? Not participate in your self care, but it's intentional time, right? It's intentional things, intentional acts that you do to care for yourself. So that means even in your serving, even in your ministry, even in your going, set aside some time to replenish yourself. Set aside some time to do some, just some self care practices, right? And I want to say this, there is no, well, maybe I should reword this and say that I suggest not taking self care days. Because when you take self care days, it's more inconsistent and it's one day. So one day can't recharge you for a whole month, right? You went got your nails done one day. That's not going to recharge you for the entire month. You need something a little bit more intentional and a little more consistent. That's why I suggested that it may not always be luxury, right? It may not always be luxury. So don't think I have to go to the spa every other day. No, 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 no. But I don't want you to just say, and it's great to just take a whole day and invest in self care and do self care activities, but one day is not going to help for a whole month. One day is not going to recharge you for an entire month. So we have to be consistent with self care, and we want to be consistent and we want to be intentional, right? So when we talk about nourishing your body and your soul without breaking the bank, do you know that mindfulness is self care? Taking some time to just be aware of your present, right? Spending some time and just focus on your breath and your thoughts without judgment. That is free self care. Exercising is self care. Working out, right? Going for a walk, getting on YouTube. I don't know if you all know this, but I like to dance. And I love learning new dances. And sometimes I don't always, have the dance or know the dance correctly, but it's just fun just moving, right? Books, right? Books, reading something is self-care. Journaling. Journaling is a form of self-care. Art is a form of self-care. walking outside, taking breaks from social media. Do you know that you can create your own home spa? Oh my gosh, have you ever considered, if you do like the spa and maybe you just want the spa experience, you can get yourself some candles and some bath fizzes and do that at home. Give yourself a good experience at home, right? Or taking some time to yourself at the end of the day and just soaking in the tub and taking a bath and just not really focusing on the day. That's a form of self-care. Do you know what else is a form of self-care? Sleep. Getting adequate sleep is a form of self-care. And if I'm just going to throw this out there, if you're looking to add to your sleep, there's a spray. They have it at the store. It's a melatonin spray. There's a Dr. Teal spray, and you can spray that on your pillow, in your room, in your kids' room. Some has melatonin. If you love lavender oil is really good to put a couple drops in your humidifier or in your room, and that will help you get enough sleep. Making sure that you have a routine bedtime, that you have a schedule, that you have something going to make sure that you get enough sleep. And guess what? I have another form of self care that is $0. It costs you $0. It's called gratitude. Practicing gratitude is a form of self care. Just sitting down and just being thankful, right? Being thankful, being grateful for every day, being grateful for what you have and a new opportunity, right? Um, Cooking a meal, that's a form of self care. Like, if you like to cook, if that's a hobby for you, not just eating, but I'm just saying if cooking is a hobby for you, some people just love to cook. Organizing, decluttering, connecting with people you love, that's social self-care. We're going to get into that next week where I break down the different types of self-care. But connecting with your friends, connecting with your family, and even if you don't live close, a FaceTime call, a Skype call, or Google Meet call, or whatever, just to connect and talk on or make a phone call, right? Deep breathing, right? Listening to music, enjoying self care. Being on here tonight is a form of self care. Getting this education, meeting in this group is a form of self care. Booking a session with a counselor is a form of self care. I have to take my glasses off for that. So many people think that counseling is for, I've heard this for a while now, that counseling is for, um, how do they say it? Crazy people, right? I've heard that a lot. Counseling is for crazy people. If you go to counseling, what's wrong with you? What's your problem? Oh, something's wrong with you. No, no, no. Counseling, I want you to see counseling as a form of self-care. You're checking on your mental health. You're checking on your emotional health. You're making sure that you are good, and that does not mean that you are crazy. Let me say that again. You are not crazy for going to counseling. You don't want to just go to counseling when you have a problem, because you may get stabilized, but you haven't worked through what's at the root of that problem, or what is the source of that problem. You haven't worked through what's causing and how to navigate that again. So you don't want to just show up to counseling every time you have a problem. You want to be consistent in counseling, right? So sometimes people may choose to say, I'm not coming back. I got that issue. I'm feeling better now. And there are times in the counseling process where you will feel better after a session, but that doesn't mean to quit the process. Okay. Counseling is a form of self care, and there are so many things that you can discuss in a counseling session. It doesn't always have to be a mental disorder or a mental illness. Sometimes you're going to counseling just to share, just to, maybe you want to learn how to communicate better. Maybe you want to learn how to, how to build your self-esteem, right? How to build your self-worth, how to think better, how to manage your thoughts, how to organize, how to plan your week, how to plan get a routine. That's something that a therapist can help you do, believe it or not. um and later on in these series, we're going to talk about the difference between a life coach and a therapist, right? Because I'm not saying that life coaches are bad, but life coaches kind of help you set a plan and a goal, right? So a therapist helps you understand the underlying reason for why you're not meeting that goal, why you're not meeting that plan. We're like, so for instance, um maybe, you know a life coach will help you with a budgeting plan, help you, meet your budget and meet those goals, right? Well, that's great to have that plan, and a therapist can do that as well. But the difference is that a therapist can help you, or a counselor or counseling intern, or they can help you more so navigate as of why, what is your relationship with money like? What has money meant to you in your life? What have you seen surrounding money in your past, in your childhood, growing up? What does money mean to you? Do you come from not having a lot? Do you come from a whole lot? So that's, are you using money to build relationships? That's the difference between counseling and life coaching. Because if you have a plan to meet your goals but you don't know why you're not meeting them, then that's the deeper work, and that's what we're here for. So please don't think that going to counseling is not a form of self-care. It absolutely is. So don't think that, oh, I don't really have no trauma, no mental illness, I don't need to go to counseling. We can all use some counseling in some area of our life. We can all use an objective um, input, right? We can always use another pair of eyes, right, and ears to help us navigate life. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint here. The types. We went a, we went backwards. All right. So the types of self care. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. So the types of self care. Um, Physical self care, right? We have our physical self care. We have our social self care. We talked about connecting with friends, physical self care, working out, walking, jogging, professional self care, right? Emotional self care, spiritual self care. So, yes, you can integrate spirituality with self care. Going to church may be a form of your spiritual self care. It may building your faith, right? Environmental self care, mental self care, practical self care, all of these things listed. Just take a second and just look through the graphic I have on screen here. All of these are, types of self care. And so you don't have to just do one thing of self care. That's why I say that self care is not always considered luxury, and self care days may not sustain you, because there are different types of self care, right? So if you notice that, oh, well, I've been going to church, and I've been faithful at church and I've been building my faith, but, you know, I haven't been eating good meals, right? And so it will keep us in this cycle where we're praying, like, okay, God, heal me, or, I want to feel better in my body, but you haven't invested in caring for your body, right? So there are different, as I mentioned earlier, we're not just spiritual beings, we have so much more to us, right? We have jobs, we have children, we have, some of us, well, some of us watching have children, or even some have grandchildren, right? You have all these different, different things going on, different aspects of life, and you don't want to just stay stuck in this one, or just only focus on one form of caring for yourself, right? We talk about emotional self-care, we get to boundaries, right? We get to relationships, we get to how much we're going to allow people to have of us, and how much do we share and trust and all those things, because you can be injured emotionally in relationships. So I just want to share that with you. If you want to take your phone and just screenshot, if you have an iPhone, there's a button on your top right, I believe, and there's a button, the top volume button on your left. If you press those at the same time, you can screenshot my graphic that I created for you. Go ahead and take your screenshot. All right, here's another screenshot moment. I think we're gonna call. How do y'all feel about that? We're gonna call these screenshot moments. Okay, so let's just, you can go ahead and screenshot that graphic I created as well. The final tips and takeaways. Right. So self care is necessary. You don't want self care to feel like an option, right? Or oh, it's not important. I'll do it here and there. And sometimes when we're burnt out, that's when we're like, okay, we're gonna do some self care. When you're burnt out, remember that means you have somewhere neglected your self care. The next thing I want you to remember is that self care is a journey. Self care is a journey. You don't just make it to, oh, I met my self care quota. No, it's a journey. You're constantly caring for yourself. And I want you to think about, think about ways that you can care for yourself. I'm going to talk about that next, right? Self care is not selfish. So we talked about the difference between self care and selfishness earlier in our very maybe second slide that I put up. So if you want to go ahead and screenshot that on your phone, self care is not selfish. Okay, selfishness is when you prioritize yourself at the expense of someone else. So selfishness is about harming someone else, right? Is whether, and harming is not always physical harm. Sometimes it's emotional harm, right? Someone made you mad, so you responded, or someone, maybe, you know, the worker at Burger King wasn't moving fast enough. So you start cursing them out, and you cuss them out, and you call them some names, right? That's selfish, right? Because why would you're doing that for the motive of your time need not being met, right? Because you wanted your food fast and you didn't get it fast enough, so you harmed them with your words. Don't ever think that words don't hurt, because they do. We can say some really hurtful things to people. So that's a form of selfishness, right? That's selfish. When we start harming others and we don't consider others, and we don't, if something's at the expense of someone else, right? If you're always borrowing money from someone and you don't pay it back, that's selfish, right? Because you're not considering that they need it too. So self-care, it does involve considering others, right? You want to be at your best self before you can show up for others. When you're not at your best self, it affects the way that you do show up for others. You don't show up at your best when you are not taking care of yourself. And as I mentioned earlier in our previous slide, there are many forms of self-care. There are many forms of self-care. I gave you just a few. Journaling, that's a form of self-care for you. Dance, art, right? Long baths, soaking. um, you have to really think about what it is that you love and you enjoy to create your own self-care plan, right? Self-care is not a one all. It's not a, what works for you is going to work for someone else. Sometimes just turning your phone off is a form of self-care. Staying away from social media sometimes is a form of self-care, especially if it's harming you, right? And when I say harming you could look like, well, you're comparing yourself a lot. You are feeling, low because you're not where other people seem to be. So a part of self-care can be limiting your social media. That's a form of self-care. Limiting your social media. Going to therapy is a form of self-care. Booking a session is a form of self-care. It doesn't mean you're crazy. It doesn't mean something's wrong with you. And it doesn't always have to be a crisis situation where something is happening. So now you need to see a therapist. I'm going to say this: if you are seeing a counselor only when you're in crisis, you're not going to grow and evolve as a person as much as you could if you stayed in the process and stayed consistent. And I understand that finances can be a factor and all of the things, schedules, but as much as you can, stay consistent, because when you are consistent in counseling, you can produce lasting results. And you don't want to just be stabilized, or you went in. And I want to say that counseling is also not just coming to a person and getting some advice. That's definitely not it. And we're moving to my last slide. I want to thank you so much for joining this virtual group. Hold up. We got to clap it out. We got to clap it out. We got to clap it out. Let me bring myself on screen so I can clap it out with you all. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Thank you so much for joining me this week for Nourish Flourish. We've learned a lot about self care. Um, if you're watching the replay, if you watch the replay, go ahead and put hashtag replay in the comments, right? I want to thank you so much for just being attentive and meeting me here on Monday nights as we discuss your self care. I want to let you know that our team really, really cares about how you're doing. And we do go back and read the comments. So if you have a question, can you go ahead and put it in the chat, put it in the comments? I'll respond to you in the comments. Um, I would love to know what you're thinking about this group, how you feel about Nourish and Flourish, self care, any mental health topics that you would like to discuss. Again, my name is Kiera Brown. I'm a counseling intern over at Joanna Cell Ministries, located in downtown Mobile, Alabama. And maybe you say, well, I live in Mobile, I live in Birmingham, but I'm not in Mobile. I'm in Huntsville, I'm in Dothan, I'm in Bessemer. Listen, that doesn't matter. If you're in Montgomery, if you're in Opelika, you can still work with us, okay? You don't just have to be in Mobile. You can, as long as you're in the state of Alabama, we can definitely work with you. We do offer virtual sessions. So, if you can't come in person, we are flexible. We offer virtual sessions. And maybe you say, well, I work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. Well, our office is open until 6. And I do offer weekends and late evening sessions. Um, there you can see the phone number as well as email address, as well as our website. Also check out some of the other great counselors on the team. Um, Phenomenal counselors that are part of the team. Check them out as well. Um, Again, I see couples, teens, children, and individuals. um, I love working with children, play therapy, right? Adults, couples counseling. Um, I would love to work with you again. So just shoot me a text at 251-901-1466, the number that's on your screen. I want to thank you so much again for joining me here for Nourish and Flourish Self Care Edition, all things self care. And I want you to just take a moment, and I want you to just just take some deep breaths. Take some deep breaths. We're going to just do some deep breathing. Breathing in your nose, holding it there, and releasing it through the mouth as if you're releasing. Think about all your worries, all your cares, the rough day you had today, and just think about releasing that when you breathe out. Repeat that, but you don't want to repeat it too fast. You want to do that slowly, right? So that was some free self care as well. So again, self care is not always luxury. It is sometimes, many times, it's free. But just think about what it is that you need for yourself emotionally. What do you need to do? Maybe set some boundaries with someone who's been kind of overstepping, they're asking for money a lot and they're in your business a lot and they're, you know, violating you in some way. Think about that. Think about how much time do you need with your friends? How much time do you need away from your friends? Well, what does your physical body need? Maybe you need to walk a little bit or exercise some, lift a few weights. You know, what do you need? Maybe you just need some alone time, some time to just soak in the tub, or some time to just sit and draw, right? Away from everyone and just draw and color or whatever it is that you like to do. Um, Self care is different for everyone. Someone else's self care may not be your self care. But also remember, we're not confusing maintenance with self care. Okay. Most times you say, well, did you go get your nails? Well, I went and got my nails done. That's my self care. Well, that's more so maintenance, right? Because that's about keeping yourself up and keeping yourself, and it's, keeping yourself up more than it is about caring for yourself, right? Because you have to ask yourself, if I did this, what did it do for me mentally? What did it do for you emotionally? Me emotionally? What did it do for you physically? What did it do for you? It can be, and I'm not saying maintenance is bad. It's not bad, but those are the things that keep, just kind of keep you going. But you want the things that pour into you, that give you that extra, the extra boost, that nourishment, right? That flourishing. Because if you have a cute French tip and you haven't gone to, you haven't set any boundaries, right? You have a lot of trauma that you haven't even addressed, then it's not necessarily that you're caring for yourself, right? You're just kind of keeping up the outside, right? So just remember, there's a difference in maintenance and self-care. So really, I'm going to give you an assignment this week to grab a notepad or a piece of paper and just write down some things, maybe 3 things that you can do for yourself in the next week that can be a form of your self-care. Maybe you're going to go for a walk for 10 minutes daily, or maybe make sure whatever it is that is something obtainable, right? You don't want to set something or plan for something that's really far out, or something that you probably can't meet. Like, if you haven't been to the gym in a while, you may not say, well, I'm going to run 3 miles next week. You may want to just say, hey, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes or 5 minutes of walking, and 5 minutes of running a little bit, right? So maybe that's what you're going to do as a form of your self-care, right? So you don't have to always, you know do something grand or do something big. Maybe you're going to get some lavender oil or good soap. Just think about, just allow yourself to just dream and think about what it is that you can do that will help you. Maybe you need to set some deadlines for some things, right? Maybe you need to say, hey, for this project, right? Can you have it done to me on this time every week? That is a form of self care. That is a form of you taking care of yourself, right? Self care, taking breaks, taking breaks. If you like to work a lot, taking some breaks and just being present in the moment, right? You can always practice mindfulness wherever you are. It doesn't have to be noticeable, it doesn't have to be a long time. So, even just 5 minutes of mindfulness. So, once again, I am Kiera Brown, counseling intern at Joanna Snow Ministries, and I want to thank you so much for joining me this Monday night for Nourish and Flourish, the self care edition. I want to thank my supervising counselor, Miss Joanna Snow, for allowing me this platform and opportunity to just come on and share about mental health topics. I have not I don't think I'm going to share what I'm going to talk about next week. I may go into more on self care about what that looks like. Y'all let me know in the comments if you would like me to do that. So I may just talk about a little bit more about the ways and the types of self care and just go into depths with that. So maybe we'll do Nourish and Flourish part 2, um, But I have so many topics that are exciting that we can talk about and we can go over. So I cannot wait at all for you all to see what those topics are. Thank you so much for joining us. If you would like to support what we do here at Joanna Snow Ministries, that's providing affordable um, counseling services, if you would like to support that, there's a way that you can support what we do here at Joanna Snow Ministries. I'm going to go ahead and put that up. I'm going to put that up right there. So that is how you can support us. I'll take my slide down really quickly. Okay, there we go. So you can support us. You can give financially at joannasnow.com/donations. Nothing is too big, nothing is too small. It goes to helping us provide affordable mental health counseling in the state of Alabama, because you should not have to choose between mental health counseling, especially when you have some sort of illness or mental illness or need or whatever that is. You should never be able to not have access to it. And that's what we work to do here. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great Monday night. Enjoy your night.